The last stand begins for months. The invasion moved like a shadow across the stars. One by one, peaceful planets fell to the Dominion, an alien empire that swept through systems with terrifying speed. Their fleets were endless. Their machines merciless. They offered no warnings, no demands. Just destruction. No world had stopped them. No species had even slowed them down. Defenses failed. Armies crumbled. The Dominion called it a cleansing. They believed resistance was foolish, until they reached the edge of human space. The last outer colony, called Relay 6, floated in silence. It was far from Earth, a mining station surrounded by ice fields and orbital junk, not even a city. Just a station. And one old warship docked nearby. The Dominion saw no threat. They scanned the system. Just one human ship, an old battleship called Valor stood. No fleet, no backup. One ship against dozens. Their commander laughed. No resistance expected. They launched their attack without hesitation, but they didn't know what kind of ship Valor really was. Inside Valor, Captain Reed stood on the bridge. The lights were dim. The crew was small, only 40 soldiers and technicians. The ship itself was outdated, its armor scarred, systems patched with old parts, but it still had firepower. And more importantly, it had Will. Reed looked at his crew. We don't have a fleet. We don't have orders. We only have the ship. And this moment, no one answered. They just nodded. The Dominion fleet appeared above the station, 18 ships in formation. They expected no fight. Just another world to conquer. But Valor powered up. Shields lit. Cannons turned. Engines roared. And with no warning, the human ship fired first. A burst of railgun fire shot through the lead enemy frigate, splitting it in half. The Dominion hesitated, confused. They weren't used to resistance, especially not from a single ship. But Reed wasn't buying time. He wasn't calling for help. He was there to hold the line. As explosions lit the cold space above Relay 6. One fact became clear. Humanity was not done fighting. Asterisk outnumbered space. Shook with light as the battle began, the Valor moved like a predator. In deep water, weaving through the ice fields of Relay 6, railguns pounded. Missiles streaked across the black sky. Despite being outnumbered, the human warship fought like it had nothing to lose. Because single quotes, T. Captain Reed stood calm at the center of the bridge. The Dominion had surrounded the system, but he didn't blink. We may be one ship, he said, but we're the wrong ship to fight. The enemy came fast, and their formation tightened. Energy blasts struck Valor's hull, shaking the ship. Shields flickered. Metal groaned. But the crew held. Reed's crew wasn't the biggest. They weren't the newest, but they were trained. They had fought before. And more than that, they believe in one thing. No one else would stand unless someone stood first. The Dominion sent boarding pods. Dozens of them. Sharp, spiked capsules meant to slam into the hull and cut open the ship like a knife. But Valor's close defense cannons spun to life and tore through the pods mid-flight. 6 still made it. Inside the hulls, human soldiers waited. They were quiet, focused, ready. When the pods burst open, the fighting turned brutal. Close range. No mercy. Every hallway turned into a war zone of blood, fire. And Metal. Red didn't send help. He didn't need to. His crew knew what they were doing. And outside, in orbit, the ship kept dancing through the chaos. One Dominion destroyer came in from behind. Trying to flank the Valor, it launched a series of charged plasma, blasts powerful enough to melt armor in seconds. But Valor responded. With an old trick, it dumped decoy cores, fake targets filled with heat. Then it spun sideways and fired a rail cannon through the destroyer's bridge. Direct hit. The enemy ship broke in half and tumbled toward the moon below. Suddenly, the rest of the Dominion fleet realized something shocking. This was not just an old human ship. This was a trap, a well-trained, battle-tested war machine, led by people who didn't care about odds. They cared about stopping them, and Valor wasn't fighting to win, it was fighting to cost them, to slow them down, to show the galaxy that even one human ship would change the War. Holding the line wreckage, floated across space. Half-burned Dominion ships drifted in silence. Some still sparked with fire. Others were just twisted metal shells. But even with losses, the Dominion still had more ships than Valor had crew. And yet, they hadn't won, not even close. Inside Valor, the lights flickered. Damage reports scrolled. Across every screen, the power core was overheating. Oxygen levels were dropping. 2 defense turrets were offline. But no one panicked. They patched what they could. They sealed off breached corridors. They kept fighting. Captain Reed watched the enemy ships regroup on the main display. His voice was calm. They're angry. No, they expected surrender. They got defiance. The bridge crew didn't smile. They were too focused, too tired. But they were ready. The Dominion shifted strategy. This time they came in waves, hit and pull back over and over. Trying to bleed the Valor dry, each time the ship rocked. Each time sparks flew from consoles. But the ship held the line. One young technician shouted, "Missile tubes 3 and 4 are gone." Reed replied, "Then use 5 and 6. Another called out, "Shields at 23%. Reed answered, "Then don't get hit." Simple answers, no fear. Just orders. Outside, 2 enemy cruisers moved in formation toward the station. Their plan was clear: ignore Valor and destroy Relay 6 itself. Even if the humans survived, if the colony was gone, they would lose purpose. But Valor turned. Engines burned hard, ripping through space at full speed. The Dominion ships tried to scatter, but they were too slow. The Valor's main cannon charged. Target locked. The gunner. "Confirmed. Fire," Reed said. A bolt of pure kinetic energy tore through both cruisers in one shot. One exploded instantly. The other drifted for seconds before breaking in half. The humans on the station below miners, workers, and families watched as flaming debris lit up the sky like falling stars. They had thought they were abandoned. They had thought the war was already lost. But now they saw hope, not numbers. But in a single ship that refused to fall, one worker whispered, "That ship's not defending us. It's daring them to try." On the bridge of Valor, Reed stood in silence. More enemy ships remained. His crew was tired. The hull was cracked, and help was still too far away, but the Dominion wasn't advancing anymore. They had found a line they couldn't cross, and that line was human. Asterisk. The enemy hesitates. For the first time since the invasion began, the Dominion hesitated. Their ships floated just outside firing range, holding formation but not moving forward. Sensors showed heat building in their plasma cores, but they weren't. Charging in, inside their command ship, the Dominion Admiral paced. This was supposed to be simple. 1 human warship, 1 outpost. It should have taken minutes, but now he had lost 7 vessels. His troops were shaken. Their fear wasn't just about the human ship's weapons. It was about how they fought. The humans didn't retreat. They didn't beg. They didn't even flinch. They fought like every second mattered. Like every breath was borrowed, and they meant to make it count. On board the Valor, the crew used the pause to regroup. Medics patched wounds. Engineers worked fast, hands burned, and uniforms soaked with sweat. Drones were launched for quick repairs on the hull. Some systems couldn't be saved, but others were rewired with spare parts and creative ideas. Captain Reed stood quietly by the main window, staring at the stars. The silence outside felt heavy, but he knew it wouldn't last. "They're thinking," he said, "trying to decide if this fight is worth the cost." His second in command, a quiet woman with soot on her face and a broken arm in a sling, replied, "Let's remind them it isn't." Below, on Relay 6, civilians listened to the echoes of the battle. They knew the fight wasn't over, but they started to believe they might survive. A small group climbed onto the station's roof and painted a giant symbol across the surface, Earth's flag, not as a call for help, but as a message. We are still here. Back in space, the Dominion launched a probe toward the Valor, silent, unarmed, scanning for weaknesses. The human crew spotted it and allowed it to approach. Reed made no move to stop it. Instead, he ordered a message transmitted straight back. Through the probe to the Dominion fleet. It was a single sentence. We don't run. We don't bow. Come if you're ready to die. The probe was silent for 10 seconds, then self-destructed. No reply came. But aboard the Dominion command ship, the Admiral's face twisted with frustration. He had thousands of troops waiting, but now none of them were eager to board the human ship. Some even questioned the mission, and that's when he realized something horrifying. This one ship had done more than hold the line. It had broken their rhythm, challenged their pride, and most dangerously, it had made the rest of the galaxy pay. Attention! Asterisk fire in the void. The waiting ended. The Dominion Admiral, furious and unwilling to admit defeat, gave the order. Crush that ship. All remaining enemy vessels turned toward Valor 10 warships, fresh squadrons of fighters, and a new wave of boarding pods. This time, they would not test or hesitate. They would overwhelm. Inside Valor, the alarms blared. The crew moved like a single machine, wounded, tired, and outnumbered, but focused. Captain Reed stood in front of the main display. "This is the moment," he said quietly. "They're coming to bury us." His voice grew firm. "So we'll bury them instead." Outside, the battle became chaos. Enemy fighters swarmed like angry insects, strafing Valor from all sides. The ship's flak cannons lit the sky, knocking down dozens, but some got through. Explosions tore across the outer hull. Flames crawled across the armor. Inside the hangars, emergency crews fought fires and sealed off breach after breach. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Pipes burst. But no one stopped. Then came the boarding pods. Dozens of them punched into the hull, sending tremors through every deck. Armored Dominion troops stormed in roaring, armored, unstoppable. Or so they thought. The humans met them in narrow corridors. They had no heavy mechs. No special powers. Just rifles, blades, and fury. Each hallway became a trap. Each room a battlefield. Human engineers dropped from vents. Medics fought with metal rods. No one gave up ground. Even the wounded joined the fight. Back on the bridge, Reed directed the last power into the ship's main cannon. "Charge everything," he ordered. "This ship dies standing." The engineer called out, "Core's too hot, sir." "Firing might destroy us." Reed didn't hesitate. "Then make it count." Valor turned toward the heart of the Dominion fleet. The cannon fired. A brilliant lance of energy tore across space straight. Through the Dominion command ship. It didn't just damage it. They cut it in half. For a moment, the battlefield froze. Then came panic. The rest of the Dominion ships began to scatter. Without their admiral, their formation broke apart. Orders turned into chaos. Pilots screamed overcomes. Some ships collided. Others ran. One by one, the remaining vessels jumped to warp and fled. The humans had won, not because of numbers. Not because of advanced tech. Because one ship had refused to fall. Because its crew believed that even if they died, they would be remembered as the fire that stopped the darkness. Asterisk, what remained silence returned to space. Only wreckage floated. Mount twisted. Metal, broken fighters, dead ships without power. And among it all, scarred and smoking, the Valor remained. It drifted slowly. Systems offline, hull torn in places, fires still being put out deep inside. But it was alive. They had survived. Inside. The corridors were quiet. Some lay wounded. Some stood guard. Many were helping each other without a word. Every face carried the same look: exhaustion and pride. On the bridge, Captain Reed leaned on the edge of a cracked console. One arm was bandaged. His voice was hoarse, but his eyes were sharp. "What's left?" he asked. The systems officer replied, "Weapons offline. Shields gone. Engines unstable. Communications weak." Reed smiled faintly. "But we're still here." A quiet cheer rippled through the crew. Below, on Relay 6, the people emerged from shelters. They looked up at the sky where battle had filled the stars, and now only peace remained. The Earth flag painted on the roof was still there, clear as ever. Messages poured in first from Relay 6, then from nearby colonies. Words of gratitude, of awe. Some were in tears, saying they had expected death. but saw fire rain on their enemies instead. A single ship had saved the world. Soon, word spread. Beyond the sector, the story of valor reached neutral systems, then council channels, then broadcast across the galaxy. The Dominion, once thought unstoppable, had lost not to a fleet, but to 40 humans on one ship, and that changed everything. On distant worlds, resistance groups found hope. Governments reconsidered neutrality. Even the Dominion's enemies began to plan bolder moves, because now they knew the humans would fight. Even alone, even forgotten, even outnumbered. Back aboard Valor, engineers slowly brought life back to the ship. One by one, lights returned. Broken panels were repaired. Communications were re-established. Reed stood by the window again, staring out at stars. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. Everyone who saw, Valor knew what it meant. This is what happens when you push humanity too far. Asterisk. The line that held the stars were quiet again. The Valor, though battered, now floated steady above Relay 6. Her hull still bore the marks of war scars, burns, and shattered plates, but her heart still beat. Life support was stable. Engines rumbled at low power, and most importantly, the crew was alive. Down below, the people of the station looked up with new eyes. That old human warship was no longer just a ship. It was a symbol. Of defiance, of courage, of hope. Across the galaxy, the story echoed louder than any weapon. On frontier worlds, people whispered about the ship that stood alone. On council stations, leaders debated Earth's strength. And on Dominion worlds, fear began to grow. They had lost not to a fleet, not to superior numbers, but to human resolve. Some said Earth must have more secret fleets. Others claimed that Valor was a prototype. But the truth was simpler and more frightening. It was just one ship, one crew, that chose not to run. Back on Valor. The crew gathered in the hangar bay. Captain Reed stood in front of them, his voice steady despite the bruises and bandages. "We didn't win because we were strong," he said. "We won because we chose to stand when no one else would." The crew remained silent, but their eyes locked on him. "You all held the line," he continued. "And that line, this ship, became something bigger than us." He looked around at every tired, scarred face. The enemy will come again, somewhere, sometime. But now they know what to expect. He paused, then added, "And so does the galaxy." Outside, support ships began arriving. Medical vessels, repair cruisers, supply freighters. Earth had heard the signals, but Valor hadn't waited. She had already drawn the line. She had already changed the war. And as more ships filled the stars, each bearing the mark of Earth, it became clear. Humanity was no longer just part of the galaxy. They were its shield. And for those who came to conquer, the message was now etched in the blackness of space. We may stand alone, but we will never stand down. And so the legend of Valor spread, not as the ship that won the war, but as the ship that refused to lose. Asterisk.